celebration of the nation's 250th birthday, the Ashby Historical Society will interview veterans in a legacy project called Ashby Service to the Nation. What has this small town contributed to your freedoms? Let's find out. Today we're going to interview Doug Leab, a transplanted Ashbyite, but a longtime town activist who is a Navy veteran. Doug, welcome.
Hey.
Doug, tell us a little bit about your early life. Where did you grow up?
Out in the Berkshires in a town called Dalton. About 6,000, 7,000 people. Home of Crane Company, the company that makes all the paper for U.S. currency and has for over 100 years. That's our claim to fame.
Okay. And you served in the Navy?
Yeah. 71 to 75.
And why did you choose the Navy, being a fellow from Western Mass?
Who could barely swim. I have no idea. I knew I didn't want to be in the Marines or the Army. And it was a toss-up between the Navy and the Air Force. But I chose the Navy.
Okay, thank you. And where did you take your basic training?
Great Lakes, out in Illinois.
That's the only Navy basic training?
Yes.
Was it during the winter? I hope not.
Both. Basic training was July to November, and then my A school, radar school, was over the winter.
Yeah. Any memories of basic training?
Oh, we had the usual. You were so into it that you were saluting the Pepsi driver and the garbage truck driver. You saluted anything.
Yeah, yes sir and no sir, huh?
Yeah. And then about halfway through, they tried to recruit me for Annapolis. And I looked at it and I said, this is not fun. I can't imagine 4 years of it with a 6-year commitment afterward. So I declined.
You declined. And they sent you to what school from?
Radar.
Radar at Great Lakes?
At Great Lakes also.
How long did that school last?
5-6 months, I think.
Wow, that's a long time.
It was lengthy.
A lot of electronics involved, or was it?
No, it was strictly how to read the scope, name got changed to operations specialist while I was in, because it was more operations than just radar. Maneuvering, plotting, radio communications, the voice radio was all the radar guides. So it was a more fitting name, even though it doesn't tell anybody what you did.
The radar guy. So when you left radar school, you went to sea, you were on a ship?
The way they did orders leaving A school is top person in the class got first pick of a bunch of orders. I was second, and I had a choice of shore duty in Guantanamo or a reserve minesweeper in Long Beach, California. I had a chief come over to me and say, I don't care what you think of me, I don't care if you ever believe a thing I say, but you do not want to go to Guantanamo. I took him at his word and took the reserve ship in Long Beach. And it was a minesweeper, 170 foot long, wooden boat. They were built in the 50s. After Korea, because they found out steel hull minesweepers blew up like crazy during Korea. So it was wooden hull, wooden superstructure, aluminum block engines, anything to make it as low a magnetic signature as possible. And I was on that reserve boat for 6 months, and you'd go out one weekend a month when the reserve crew showed up for training, and a couple of weeks in the summer. So it was good duty. It was basically shore duty, which is almost impossible to get in radar.
In Southern California.
In Southern California.
Yeah.
Then there was a big meeting on the ship across the pier. And nobody would tell you what it was, but I got through the grapevine they were going to Nam. No, they were going to the East Coast and then becoming a reserve ship on the East Coast. And they said, this is great, but East Coast is closer to home. So I put in for a transfer. Bureau personnel says, what are you doing there? They don't have any spot for your reading. And so the transfer was easy. Then they had a big meeting. And the rumor came down the pier they were going to Nam. So I called up the executive officer on the ship I was going to and said, what's your operating schedule for the next month? Because I've got a couple of weeks leave coming to me. Says, I can't tell you that, but don't leave town. So we left for Nam in December of '72. It was all part of the peace treaty negotiations. We were to go there and clean up the mines that we dropped in Haiphong Harbor. Which was a little scary because I knew these things didn't work perfectly. And we left in the biggest storm I ever saw. Green water over the second level. It was just horrendous. The props came out of the water on every wave, and the whole boat would shake, and then you dive down. It tore the cover off the sonar winch and perched it up on the second level. And I was the new guy, so I was expendable, so they tied a rope on me and sent me out to tie it down so we didn't lose it completely.
So tell me about life at sea. How did you left Long Beach and went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Certainly you didn't sail across the Pacific.
We didn't carry enough fuel to get even halfway to Hawaii. So they put a big rubber bladder of fuel on the stern. And that got us halfway to Hawaii. Then we refueled at sea and made the rest of the trip, excuse my hiccups. Life at sea, very routine. You know, you had your watches, which were 4-hour watches starting at midnight to 4 a.m., 4 to 8. And then your day watches and your evening watches. So you were expected to stand your watch, which meant being up in the combat center, watching the radar, doing the plotting, and then work a full day from 8 to 12 if you had the midnight shift. So you got a little sleep in between, but not much. But it was all very routine.
You're on a ship that's not much bigger than a crab on the Deadliest Catch.
Pretty much commercial fishing boat.
What were your quarters and meals and?
You had 2 berthing areas of roughly 35 people apiece, 3 tiered. The first ship I was on had canvas hammocks, and you kind of wondered about them because if you weren't on the top bunk, it came down right in your face when the other guy got in. But the modernized one I was on had a piece of plywood with a 3-inch mattress. And they were uncomfortable as hell, and if you were in rough seas, the thing bounced like crazy. The canvas was a lot better. You got in and you stayed put. But 35 guys in the berthing area. They put all the deck crew and operations crew in the forward berthing area, and the engineering crew and stuff down in the lower area, close to the engine room.
Yeah. So you went to Nam in 71, and the war was still going on.
Yeah.
The war didn't finish until 75. So what was a normal day like in Haiphong Harbor?
Sitting at anchor. We sat at anchor most of the time as a guidepost to where the minefields were supposed to be. And the helicopters did virtually all the sweeping. They had helicopters that would tow a magnetized pipe. It was called a MOP, a magnetized orange pipe. Really clever. And they would go up and down the channel sweeping the mines. So we never swept a mine when we were over there, which was good, but it was scary. I remember in the Philippines, before we headed for Nam, we tied mattresses to the overhead so that theoretically you wouldn't break your neck on the way up, not until you came back down. Yeah, it was nervous.
So were the mines detonated or just retrieved?
Detonated, but the reality was you can set a mine to self inactivate. So they were all supposed to be inactivated.
Supposed to be.
Yeah. We didn't get to find out whether they were or not on my boat.
Yeah.
Biggest problem over there was when we were in the Philippines, and there were all these minesweepers from California and Guam. And they all went through some refitting in the Philippines before we left. And they put in substandard insulation on the engine room. And they burned. The USS Force burned to the waterline and sank.
And it's made out of wood.
And it's made out of wood. It was sailing alone, packed to Guam, burned and sank. The guy spent 24 hours in the life raft waiting to get picked up. The Elusive was gutted, and we had several fires. And if you want to know general quarters, it's when you wake up on a wooden boat smelling smoke. It was more than a little scary.
Yeah. Now your ship was 170 feet long, and compared to a carrier,
Oh, God.
which has, what, 5,000 people on it?
Yeah,
Who was the crew of your ship?
70.
70 versus 5,000.
And it was wonderful.
You like that?
Oh, yeah, you knew everybody on the ship. You knew them well. And you learned to get along. When you do 42 days at sea like we did off Nam at one point, you all go a little stir crazy. But it was with humor on our boat. Weird things would happen, but it was all with humor.
Well, that was actually my next question. What are some humorous things that happened to you while you were in?
Now, other than being the guy to go out and tie down the sonar cover,
At least they put a rope around your belt.
They did put a rope around me. I remember in that bad storm walking out into the pilot house, which is where the steering and the commands to the engine room were done. It was underneath the bridge where the officers were. And so you had one guy on the helm steering, one guy on the lee helm running the commands to the engine room. And I walked out in there just as one guy went to the left, puking his guts out. The guy on the right went to the right, puking his guts out. And I'm standing there with nobody to steer the ship.
It must have been a storm.
Oh, it was a storm to end all storms. And the funny part is, we went to Nam and back. We came back to California for a little bit, and then we did change to the East Coast, to Charleston, South Carolina. Now, down pleasure cruise, down the Mexican coast, through the Panama Canal, the Bahamas. Truly a pleasure cruise. We get to Charleston, and we weren't there very long, and they came in and said, "You're too top heavy to go out."
So you're stuck in port.
This after all we've been through, now they tell us the boat's too dangerous to sail.
Right. Does the boat still exist today?
No, they were all scrapped.
And by the way, what was its name?
The USS Leader, MSO 490.
Leader, like in
As
all
in,
boys?
yeah, the minesweepers were all named after traits. The first one I was on was the Constant, the Elusive,
Cool, I didn't know that. That's good.
the Force.
Yeah.
So they were all named after character traits.
Good. So, kind of to sum this up, Doug, after you spent 4 years in, and did you take advantage of the GI Bill when you got out?
Oh yeah, I went to college. You need to understand that the reason I went in the Navy, I was in high school, it was time to apply for college. And I looked at the applications, I looked at the financial aid forms, and I said no. I went down to the recruiter. They filled out all the paperwork for you, all you had to do was sign. I got out, I think it took me an hour to fill out my college application.
Yeah.
So I went to college at UMass,
Good for you. And degreed in what?
forestry.
In forestry, can you imagine? If you could look out our window now, folks, we have about 2,000 acres of forest behind us. Great place to live. And one final question for you, Doug. Military service, any experiences or lifelong lessons did you learn because of the military?
Well, first, I've always been glad I did it. I've always been glad I didn't do a day more.
Well said.
They offered me a re-enlistment bonus of $10,000 at a time where $10,000 was a lot of money, but guaranteed I'd go
That's
to
new Corvette time.
Yeah, guaranteed I'd go to a carrier.
Yeah.
And I'd seen enough to know that there was no way I wanted to do that. I think my service time made college easy. There was discipline,
A little more focused.
very focused. You learn to get along with people. You know, you've got no choice, or you're going to be miserable. And I think that, and you learn to take naps whenever you can, because you never know when the next chance to sleep is going to come.
Yeah. Okay, anything else you'd like to add, Doug, today?
No, I don't think so, Rod.
Well, appreciate it.
I
Appreciate
thank
your
you.
service. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. We'll have more later.